call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Regular scheduled board meeting. I'd like to welcome all the visitors, and I would ask that we stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we are going to start the board meeting with the mission statement. Ask one of the other trustees if they would volunteer to read it.
Yes. I'll read it.
All right.
The Lakeland Joint School District's daily mission is to maximize student learning and ensure every student is growing academically, socially, emotionally, and behaviorally every day in all environments.
Thank you. All right, so patron input. Chrissy, do we have patron input?
We do not.
Okay. So we'll go on to report and presentation agenda. We have staff reports, I-rated presentation, Lisa Hoffman, Betty Keeper Elementary.
So I would like to address the board and let them know we had several questions when we were in our board workshop to set the goals for the year. And one of the things that the workshop facilitator had said was, well, the board doesn't know what I-rated is. How do we measure? What do we use it for? And so this is a follow-up to that piece of it. And the sexton found out the person who knows the most about it in our district, and comes to find out it's Mrs. Lisa Hoffman. And she's the assistant principal at Betty Keeper Elementary. She did work in the Coeur d'Alene School District and has used the program longer than we have in the district. So she has a historical perspective that we don't have. So she's up. So welcome.
Thank you. I stand right over here. Yep. Okay. I'm gonna take this off so you can actually hear me. So first of all, thank you, Lisa Hoffman. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this tonight. When I came to the Lakeland School District last year, we were just starting to use it for kindergarten through second grade, and I remember talking to Dr. Meyer and Ms. Sexton about how beneficial I felt that it was, and so I was super excited to be able to start using it. Where am I at, Christy? Where's it? Oh, sorry. Okay, perfect. So I have been able to use it for the last 6 years as a classroom teacher, as a principal, and now as an assistant principal. So our district last year it was just K2. And this year it's going to be K8, but just for some background, I-rated is a comprehensive assessment and instruction program that empowers educators with the resources they need to help all students succeed. It connects diagnostic information and personalized instruction. It's said to reduce complexity, save time, and makes differentiated instruction achievable in every classroom. So I'll kind of get into that a little bit more. I know that's pretty broad. So first of all, we know that students at different starting points often grow at different rates. So you walk into any given classroom, you might have 10 students who are at grade level or above grade level. You might have 5 who are approaching grade level, and you might have 6 or 7 who are 2 or more grade levels below. So what do we do with that information? We also know that students who are behind will need a lot more to grow. They'll have to grow a lot more to reach their proficiency. We also know that educators want to understand what to expect and what to aim for. So just a brief history. So last year I kind of mentioned the state paid for kindergarten through second grade to have the diagnostic assessment for all districts throughout Idaho. So when I think of the diagnostic, I think of a car going to get a checkup. Diagnostic, you're checking to make sure you're checking the oil, you're checking the engine, all parts of the engine. I don't know very much about cars, but that's just where my brain goes. You're seeing what works and you're seeing what doesn't work. So that's kind of how I envision what a diagnostic assessment is for. After talking with the administrators last year, our third grade teachers they saw how beneficial it was for K2, so they were hoping to have something for third grade. So we were able to get third grade in on that rollout a little bit. We found the benefits to be, it has normed assessment information. So we can go through, after the kids take the diagnostic, we can go through and look at the norm percentages. So throughout the nation, we can see based on the information that we're given. So if they're scoring at the 30th percentile, then that means that they're scoring 30% better than students of their age throughout the nation. And it gives them a description of each of the strengths and weaknesses in each domain. It has individualized pathways based on students' mastery. So not just for your entire class, but each individual student. We also noticed the vertical alignment across the grade levels, which is something that our teachers have been really hoping for, and feeling like that's kind of the missing piece that they want to be able to meet with grade levels. Second grade wants to meet with third grade wants to meet with fourth grade. And then so this year we kind of found that it stopped at third grade. So then now what do we do? So now this year we have our K-8 diagnostic. So same assessment that we had last year, but now we've extended it up to 8th grade. With this year though, we now have growth monitoring, which is kind of our progress monitoring, temperature checks between our big diagnostic tests. And now we also have the individualized instruction, which we call the student pathways. We are able to track growth trends from kindergarten through 8th grade. And then we're also offering, so I'm trying to attend all the trainings that I can so that we can offer more individualized trainings for each specifically down to each grade level, or just, you know, groups of people who are hoping to find out more information who might not know where to go next. So a little bit more information about the diagnostic test. It is adaptive. So if I'm a second grade student who's taking the test for the first time, my first question is going to be at the first grade level. So then it kind of adjusts throughout the entire test. If I answer the question correctly, it's going to go a little bit harder. And then it's going to keep going. If I miss one, it's going to adapt and it's going to go a level below. The diagnostics are pretty lengthy. They have an entire window of time though that they can take it. So I believe our fall window was from the first day of school and it just ended October 12th. So they had quite a bit of time. Now some students, they can complete the test in one day, great, but it gives that flexibility to teachers where we're not spending an entire, you know, even an entire 45-minute block of time taking an assessment. We know that kids need to move and we want it to be accurate. So we have that window of time to be able to complete it. And it allows for a complete picture of student performance and growth. The thing I really like about it, because it is adaptive, it maximizes time, so there's no need for redundant testing. So you're going to get a true glimpse of what the strengths and weaknesses are, so you don't have to do this test 10 times throughout the quarter. And it assesses through 4 different domains. So you have numbers and operations, algebraic thinking, data and measurement, and geometry. So for every grade level, the standards fall within those 4 domains, and so that's kind of how it categorizes the information and pulls out what the students need to be working on. And then the diagnostic is given 3 times a year, so fall, winter, and spring. Then the new piece that we have this year is the growth monitoring. So we kind of look at that as a temperature check between diagnostics, so we're making sure that students are tracking, I don't like to use the word tracking, that they're making progress how we want them to make progress. So right now we're doing it at Betty Kiefer. We are doing the growth monitoring for all of our students because it is new for the teachers, and so we want them to get used to how it works and how the data correlates with for the first diagnostic that they've given. It's a shorter test, so it's about a 7-minute-ish, sometimes not even that long. Just to kind of gauge, it'll just give us a scale score to see are they tracking towards meeting their proficiency goals, or do we need to intervene and do something different? And that would be the early intervention. And then we also like to use this for our MTSS and RTI teams. If we have students that we're referring for special education, or if we have them on you know, an I-plan, then we can use that information to see if we need to do things a little differently. And then we also with that too, so I talk a lot about it helps us to monitor to make sure our struggling students are reaching proficiency, but it also helps us to get a picture of our students who are advanced. It's allowing us to be able to push them and challenge them a little bit more and to give us those resources and tools that we need for instruction to keep them going past where they need to be. And then the personalized instruction piece, I love this piece of it. It's lessons based on individual skill level. So it takes their diagnostic test and it figures out exactly where they are. So for my daughter specifically, she's in 4th grade. I feel like I can talk about this because she's my kid.
Yes.
So 4th grade, she did great in every domain except for numbers and operations, which as a mom, I'm like, holy cow, are you kidding me? Like that's the one that you need to be able to move forward in all the other ones. So she scored at grade 2 for numbers and operations. So her personalized instruction, that's exactly where it started because it knows that if she doesn't get the foundation down, she's not going to be able to advance like she should. So I went through and looked at her personalized instruction, and she has probably 10 lessons that it gives her for numbers and operations, and it gets harder as it goes. But her teacher has the option if she feels like with the classwork, because this is supplemental, I want to make sure that I make sure that that's clear. It's supplemental. This isn't our core math instruction. But so it allows her teacher to go in. So if she feels like that through everything else that they're doing in math, if she's mastering that in the classroom, then there's no point in her spending, all that time on her pathway focusing on that if she's got it. So she can actually go in and adjust the instruction and change the standards if she needs to. So you can go through and you can, or if it's the opposite, if she's not doing well, then she can back it up a little bit and maybe she needs to start at a grade 1. So you can definitely adjust those. It's fun and interactive. It kind of gives them little brain breaks throughout. And it's recommended 45 minutes a week for students to make the progress to meet their growth goals. And I can talk about that in a minute. The nice thing about this is we have at Betty Kiefer, and I can't speak to every school because I don't know exactly what they're doing, but because we are coming in now to the building at 8:45 every morning and they're not going out to the playground to play, we have that time where they can actually come in, they're getting started, they're opening their computers. Some classrooms, they're starting on their iReady lessons right away. So then when 9 o'clock hits, they're actually starting their core instruction time with their teacher, but they've had that time to work on their individual pathway. And it also gives the teacher time then where they can have that time to walk around and help as needed. So what is available to teachers and students? Teachers, you have those diagnostic results, and I wish I had more time because I really wanted to show you exactly what that looks like because it's really, I'm kind of nerdy when it comes to that, but it really, like I feel like you have so much information at your fingertips, and at first, I know when I started working with it, I was overwhelmed, like, well, what am I going to do with all this information? And so in the trainings that I'm providing to different schools, I'm really trying to just do little bits at a time so they can feel how useful each different component is. So it gives you typical growth measures from the diagnostic and stretch growth measures. So your typical growth is what a typical student should grow in any given year. Your stretch growth, so that would be, so my daughter, her stretch growth, I think, brings her up into like middle of 5th grade level. Well, that would be awesome. Like, I would love that. And so what her teacher did, so they made goals as a class, and obviously they want to get to their stretch goals, but they're focusing on their typical growth right now. And then we're able to use those in our RTI meetings as well. Student data chats, again, with setting goals. Teachers they have this information that they can pull from the program, and it goes through. Students are tracking their own data, so they have a visual representation of how they're doing. They can do it for their diagnostic, their growth monitoring, as well as their individual lessons, so it's very personalized. Instructional tools for each standard for a given domain. So I'm going to kind of talk about that with the instructional groupings. So after they take their diagnostic, you can actually, there's a button to click and it's instructional groupings. And so it'll group your students according to how they performed on the assessment. And then you can group them even smaller based on each individual domain and then based on the standards within that domain. So it's very it kind of, I mean, it digs deeper and deeper and deeper depending on how deep you want to go. And so with the instructional tools, it will tell you this student or this group of students, here's what they can do, they mastered it, and here's your next steps. This is where you want to start. And then it will give you just a ton of resources on where to, you can just pull a ton of information. I find that useful for paras who are working with groups of students. We can't have parents this year, but that was something I used in my classroom. I would have parents come in, that would be something I would have them prep, a little center activity, but it would be directly related to the activities and the tasks for the students to do. And notice I put tools for support and enrichment because they're both just as important. And then I put student-led conference information because I feel like with the student data chats, when we're really trying to get them to get to those student-led conferences where they can report on their own growth. So they're practicing that throughout the entire year. Students, obviously the diagnostic growth monitoring and personalized instruction is available to them. They have learning games that they can access through the program. And a lot of teachers at first were asking me, like, how do you turn the games off? Like, I don't want to deal with the games. They're just playing. Well, actually we found out, yes, they're playing, but there's really valuable information. One of the things was, how are they doing with their growth mindset? And I was like, well, how are we going to figure that out from them playing games? It talks about resiliency. So if they're losing the game, do they keep going? Do they keep trying for more challenging games, or are they just quitting and giving up? So that goes along with student-led conference. Back to their parents, they can have conversations with their teachers about, why aren't you trying? What's hard for you? Those kinds of questions to kind of keep them motivated, working through it. And again, goal setting. And just those self-paced lessons too. It helps them to not feel overwhelmed in the experience that I've had. So I wanted to show this. I just kept Betty Kiefer for you to see. So this window one would be, and this was last year. So this window, and this was without the growth monitoring or the personalized instruction. So this was only the diagnostic information that we had. So we were doing our core math instruction, and then they were taking the iReady assessment. So in the fall at Betty Kiefer, 16% of our students were at or above grade level, 68% were approaching grade level, and 16% were 2 or more grade levels below. The final diagnostic in the spring, we raised that to 64% proficient or at or above grade level. And you'll notice every school made significant gains. So that's the longitudinal piece that we really wanted to be able to access. And I feel like that just speaks measures right there. And last year was, our spring was an interesting spring. So I can only imagine what we can do this year. I feel like that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. So do you guys have any questions?
So is this something the students, they have their own individual login, and if they were to take their device home, can they do it even at home?
Absolutely. Right now I actually have it set up where they can access and you can change. I mean, there's so much that we have access to that we don't have to even contact curriculum associates to take care of. I was able to go through and set parameters because we don't want our students taking the growth check at home. We want that to be done in the classroom setting. So I was able to put, they can only take it between 9 and 2:30. I don't even want them taking it at 8:45 to 9 o'clock time because the teacher might not be, aware that that's what they're doing. But it's definitely something that they can access from home. So in the spring, my kids were actually doing, I had done something separate because we didn't have it, but they were doing iReady lessons at home.
And do the students keep their login information private? The reason I ask is I know another teacher, and she had some students, and the one student felt bad for the other one because he wasn't doing quite as well. So the other student logged on for his friend when he got home, and he brought him way up so he could catch up to him.
So I will say our teachers do their best. I mean, our younger kids have their oh my gosh, I can't even think of the word, the badges that they can flash in front. And I will say, I mean, they do their best to keep them private, but that's another piece, you know, if the teacher notices that, you know, it's not a
Yeah, it was
typical,
quite obvious
it's not a
that,
typical
yeah.
game, then we can go in and adjust and kind of reassess the situation. So that's the piece that I like about us having access to be able to do that, rather than it just being where the whole pathway now changes because this student, you know, that,
Helped
because
us
that
bring.
happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, we would hope that that wouldn't happen, but sure.
That sounds great. It sounds like a really good program.
And this is targeted specifically to the components of mathematics, not to a curriculum.
Correct. Yes, it's just it's not a curriculum. I mean, they have the core instruction, and that was what I used that at my previous district, but we are solely just using it as supplemental.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You're good. I can leave it right there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Shows here, LEA update. Jason Bradford.
And you can't make it tonight, so we'll just go right past that.
Past that. Go right into the auditor's presentation. Recognize him behind the mask.
Yes, maps and financial statements for the first 45 minutes of the meeting, so it's a treat for everyone.
All right, is Cindy gonna do this or are you gonna do this?
I was gonna give it over to Cindy. She's like, no.
So I know it doesn't seem right, but it's this one forward too.
Okay, that goes down.
But yeah, this one keeps going forward, even though it's counterintuitive.
I can figure it out.
Thanks, Tony.
Go down. Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good.
Well, thank you.
My name's Tony Matson. I'm the auditor for the school district. See some new faces here, so just brief introduction. I've been up here auditing the school district since 2013. I took over from my partner. Our firm has been doing this audit for a long time, Hayden Ross down in Moscow. We just appreciate the opportunity to be able to come up and do the audit every year. We get to work with a great staff. Brian and Cindy and Becky are all great to work with, and Cindy has to deal with a lot of our questions, and she does it with a smile, and she's glad when we leave. So I'm going to kind of go through the I know you guys have an electronic copy of the financial statements. You also have the graph presentation. So we're just going to go through the graphs today. I just think it's an easier way to go through the presentation. There's a summary at the beginning of the graphs that is just basically a summary of what I'm talking about today. So there's no reason to take any notes. That summary should talk about all the things I talk about now. So hopefully we can just have a dialogue. Brian, if you feel like there's something I'm missing, please interrupt. Becky, Cindy, if you feel like I'm missing something, let us know. We're going to be issuing a clean opinion on the financial statements again this year. So that's good. Very few adjustments. Cindy and Brian have the financial statements pretty much all ironed out by the time we get here, which is great. One of the things that I like to always look at is, we're going to look at this graph first, the statement of net position. So we look at this every year. Statement of net position is looking at the school district as if it is a private enterprise. So it's going to represent the financial statements or the financial position a little bit different. It's going to show all of your fixed assets being capitalized and then depreciated. Whereas you typically just see, if you guys buy a bus, it's expense in the current year. Here you're going to see a bus capitalized for 10 years and then, $7,000 of depreciation taken each year. It also has all your long-term liabilities included here. So a bond payment on your regular financial statements are just going to be an expense. Here is going to be a reduction of a liability. Don't want to spend a lot of time here, but your net position. So you ended the year at $22,969,000. So that's equity of the school district. That was up about $3,000 or $3 million year over year. And you can see since fiscal year 15 and 16, where it was down in that $8 million range, we've really had quite an increase at the school district over the last 5 years. The second line there, the green line, is your net investment in capital assets. So this is going to be all of your capital assets less the debt related to them. I just like to show this. You can kind of, just as a point of reference, you can see from 2017 to now, that's increased. That's really a testament to the investment into the capital assets that the district has done over those last 4 years. And the final piece that I always like to bring up is this lower line here, just so your net pension liability. What is this? I like to take the opportunity to give you guys an update on Percy. So the retirement system, it's 93.79% funded, which is awesome. It's one of the best funded retirement programs in the country. It's up about 2% from where it was the prior year. With that said, it's not 100% funded. So the district is responsible to put on their financial statements their theoretical liability related to the unfunded portion. So of the overall deficit, if you will, net pension liability of the state, the district has 0.6% of that. So a really small number, but really small percentage, but it ends up being a fairly large number, $7.7 million. But you can see that was actually down came up almost $2 million this last year. So really, I like to show that so you can see where that is at. Percy's been funded from as high as 95% to as low as 87% since we've been required to report it on the financial statements. But it had a good year. One thing I like to always point out is Percy is reported a year behind. So this number here is as of 6/30/19, because their 6/30/20 financial statements don't become available until this next couple months here. So we don't have that information for the financials.
Hey, Tony?
Yeah.
Before you go to the next slide.
Absolutely.
Just since we have a few new board members.
Sure.
Could you the real short version of the scope of the audit, the purpose of the financial audit, and also, I guess, the single audit for the federal, what you look at,
Okay.
So they sort of know the parameters of what you're operating.
Perfect. So we come in and we're going to look at the financial statements to make sure they're accurate, right? But I think more importantly than that, we also come in and we're going to look at all the internal controls of the district. So we come in, we get to talk to everybody and say, okay, so tell me about your cash receiving processes. Tell me about your cash disbursement process. Tell me about your payroll process. Tell me about your financial statement process. And we come in and help the district look at your processes, identify what we call key controls. So key controls when there's someone who has to make an approval or a decision on a process, right? Make sure that all of your different systems have key controls. And then we go in and we test those to make sure that those controls are functioning as they're supposed to. The district passed all of those tests. So that actually ends up, we spend a lot of time looking at invoices, making sure we got POs for them, making sure we got approvals for them. We go in and we come in and we don't test all the individual schools, but we do test 2 schools every single year. Last year we tested Lakeland High School and Lakeland Junior High. Correct? It was the junior high and the high school that Ben Kiefer and the high school. So we come in and we go down to those records and we pull a sample out of each one of those schools to see how well the schools are also doing, not just the district. And if we have any issues with that, we end up talking to Cindy, so Cindy can take that information back to the particular schools and help them throughout the year and making sure that they got all the right support for what they're particularly doing. So we have a whole internal control piece that we do that's related to the financial statements. But what else? Did I get what you wanted there?
Yeah, the internal controls, the overall that you're on our financial statements, you're not necessarily giving an opinion on good, bad, and different. You're just saying these are the facts.
Yeah. So our opinion is that they're fairly stated. Okay. That means that we have some level of materiality, right? So we're not going to come in and if something is off $1,000, that's not going to materially affect the financial statements. So all of our tests, we don't come in and look at 100% of the records. That would cost $1 million. It would cost a lot of money to come in and look at every single transaction that has happened at the district. So we come in and do a risk assessment and really look at it and say, okay, where does the school have the greatest amount of risk? And then we want to focus our energies on those particular areas. And then we're going to follow up as things come up. So we're going to go look at this number or that transaction or that group of transactions. And as long as things are looking good, then we're going to move on to the next sort of risk. If there's an issue there, we're going to dive in, we're going to ask additional questions, and we're going to make sure that we drill down far enough that we feel like that number is either correct or that number needs to be adjusted. So when we look at these and say that we are issuing a clean opinion, meaning they're fairly stated, that's what we really mean, is that we've looked at them to a level sufficient enough for us to feel confident that the numbers are not misleading in any way. So,
Thank you.
yes. All right, so what I want to do today is, I always kind of like to do that government-wide financial statements, talk about that, but let's really talk about how your financial statements, how you guys see your financial statements every single day. We're going to go through a couple of your funds. Primarily, we're going to spend a little bit of time on the general fund, and then we're going to hit some of the other major funds. The general fund started the year with a fund balance of $5,266,000. Your revenues last year were $36,008,000. Your expenses were $35,611,000, and you ended the year with a fund balance of $5,663,000. That was an increase of $396,000 last year. So a good year. When we look at what that really means, I always like to take a historical look at your revenues and expenses. Note here, we went ahead and added the fiscal year 21 budget here. So that top line is going to be your budget. And I've tried to incorporate that into as many of the graphs as I can, so you can kind of see where you ended fiscal year 20 and then also where you've budgeted for 21. Probably the biggest thing here, your top line is going to be your darker lines, your expenditures, your lighter line is going to be your revenues. We'll see this clearer on the next picture, but it's really a story of two different periods of time. From 2012 through 2015, the district had experienced a loss every single year. 2016 through 2020, the district has increased your fund balance over those same time periods. So when we look at what that means for your fund balance, this is a better way to look at it, in my opinion. So the darker line and the numbers with the boxes around them, that's going to be your actual fund balance. Okay, you can see you guys actually have a negative fund balance in your general fund, which is not a good position to be, fiscal year 15, fiscal year 16. Since that time, you've been able to bring your fund balance up to the $5,668,000 that we're talking about now. Oh, excuse me, column off. The $5,663,000, that last column is going to be what you budgeted for next year. But there's a couple other pieces here that I wanted to talk about. The two lighter green lines, the top one is, so these are going to be your fund balance policy that the district has in place. Okay. Fiscal year 19, it gets a little, or 20, it changes because there was a new fund balance policy that was adopted last year. Prior to last year, you had a minimum fund balance of 5%, maximum of 7.5%. Last year, that minimum 8.3% and a maximum of 16.6, which is really 8.3% is 1 month's worth of operating expenses. 16.6 is 2 months worth of operating expenses. As a side note, the GFOA recommends as a minimum 2 months. So I feel like the new fund balance policy is closer in line with what you sort of nationally see as a fund balance policy. I think when you guys were at the 5 to 7.5%, it was really a function of where you guys were at that point in time. You didn't have a fund balance, so getting to 5 to 7.5% was the goal. You guys got to that goal, and then this last year adjusted your fund balance policy to something that I think is going to hold true for the district into the future. You can see you're right. You're basically where you ended was in between those two. You're at 15.9% is 15.9% is where your fund balance ended up. That's right under that 2 month mark. You guys are budgeting to basically be flat for next year, which puts you basically right at that same spot. So I think the district is in a good spot from a fund balance perspective. Anything else on that, Brian? Okay. I wanted to look at your revenues a little bit closer. Again, current year revenues, total revenues were $36,008,000. That was up about $815,000 year over year. Your local revenue, so that's gonna be your levy, was $9,897,000. That was actually down about $554,000 year over year. Primarily, the difference there was because you guys had a lower emergency levy. So fiscal year 19, your emergency levy was about $500,000 higher than it was in fiscal year 20. On your state side, your state revenues were $25,919,000. That was up $1,269,000 last year, which was really a function of two things. It was pretty much all in your base support, which you guys had about 6 more support units last year. So just on a support unit funding, more students equals more money from the state. And on a per support unit, the state also increased their funding per support unit, even though there was a holdback for COVID. So the net effect of that was about a $1.3 million increase in your state funding last year. Your other revenue is really your E-rate reimbursement, and it's fairly small for the district. When we look at your local to state revenue comparison, I like to look at this just for a couple points really. Number one, you'll see from fiscal year 17 to 18, you see your local support as a percentage jumped. That's also where the district went out and got the $8.9 million levy for the general fund. So you went from 5.3 to 8.9, which is just going to adjust the way this graph looks. With that said, the state funding has been higher on a per support unit for about the last 5 or 6 years. So that increased funding has really helped out the district in helping their fund balance come up. When you look at where you guys are in terms of funding your general fund, I also like to point out that when you have a higher reliance on local money, so your levy, the way the cash flow works out, it typically means that you need to have a higher fund balance. What's going to happen is you're going to get your $9 million that you're levying is going to come in basically two payments. You're going to get half of the money in January, and then you're going to get half of the money in July. So July is the 13th month of the district. So although you get credit for that money that's coming in July, you don't actually have that money until that 13th month at the end of July. So when the district had a low fund balance, a lot of times it's like, hey, we need to get that levy dollars in the door to be able to make July payroll. So that's one of the reasons why that fund balance has to be a little bit higher, so the cash flow is there, so you're not completely relying on that July payment to come in order to fund the operations of the school. All right, on the expenditure side, total expenditures last year again were $35,611,000. That was up about $1.7 million or 5% year over year. Your instruction accounted for $21,436,000. That was up just over $1 million last year, which is all flows down to salary and benefits. Salary and benefits were up $1,085,000 last year. So all things being equal, your purchase services and your supplies and materials are basically flat, and your increase there was all related to payroll and benefits. On the support side, total support expenditures were $13,477,000. That was an increase of about $737,000, and again, primarily related to payroll and benefit increases. Your transfers were $528,000. That has to do with your transfer into the Medicaid account primarily. So you fund the Medicaid account with the transfer, and that's where all those Medicaid related expenditures happen. If we look at your breakdown, historical breakdown between your instruction and support expenditures, again, you got the budget here, so you're one column in on last year. Last year, 60% of your general fund expenditures went to instruction, 38% went to support. I always look at this as 60-40 is sort of the baseline for me in terms of a district your size. I do the audit for Lewiston, and our firm does it for Moscow, and both of those schools fall right in that 60-40%. So you guys are real comparable to some schools. One's a little smaller, one's a little bigger, but you're right in that same sort of breakdown, which is great. A lot of smaller schools I deal with, you end up seeing this closer to 50-50 or support actually being higher than instruction. So it's nice to be able to make sure those dollars are going to instruction and getting to the kids. You can see you've budgeted for next year to be real similar to where you were at the end of this year. Overall, total payroll and benefits were $30,662,000 last year. Overall, an increase of $1,638,000 or about 5.6%. You can see that there's been a steady increase since fiscal year 16. We've had 7.5%, 9.7%, 6.3%, 5.6%. You guys have been investing in your teachers, you've been investing in your employees and the related benefits that are associated with that. Always like to look at your overall payroll and benefits. They accounted for 86.1% of all your general fund expenditures. So pretty much as you guys start school, you have all those signed teacher contracts. You pretty much signed away 86% of your general fund budget at the time school starts. The other expenses, the 13.9%, that was about $4,949,000 last year. That was relatively flat. It was up about $86,000 year over year, but effectively flat. But other expenses that's all your utilities, supplies and materials, purchase services, it's your insurance, it's your transfer, it's everything else. Every school district is, as you guys all know, is employee driven, and 86% is right in the same percentage that you guys have historically been. Again, the benchmark I look at here is 85-15. Again, Moscow and Lewiston school districts, they're right in that same 86-14, 87-13%. So you guys, the way you guys are spending your dollars is reasonable to the way that I've seen other districts in the area spending their dollars. All right, a couple other graphs I threw in here. Just going to look at student enrollment. Obviously, fiscal year. So this is fall. So that last number there, 2020, is going to be in your current fiscal year. You guys have the drop, but the district has been growing year over year since 2013. So that's just really driven the way the district has had to operate. You guys have qualified for emergency levies almost every single year until this last year, just by the fact that the growth has been happening at the district.
That's really that due to the COVID.
Yeah, this is a COVID related drop. Yeah. And it will be interesting to see where those numbers end up it's fall numbers, so it's not an end of school year number. But for this upcoming year, you did not qualify for emergency levy. So this is most likely going to be a blip on the scale as we move forward, as the district moves forward. As it relates to those same numbers, it's just nice to take a look at your payroll and benefit costs per student. The darker line is going to be general fund expenditures, and then the back line is going to be total payroll. Your total cost per student in general fund was $6,666 per kid. That was up about 2.8% from this $6,487 the year before, and that's just really a function of your salaries and benefits going up with 3% raise last year and such. That's just where you are. It's interesting that your budget for 21 is higher, and that's really just a function of the fact that your enrollment is down. Your salaries and benefits were pretty much flat. Yeah. So this is just running on the fact that you have a lower enrollment right now. Property tax has been something that's been important to look at over the years. Your property tax values have been increasing and increasing since 2012. Again, so this is tax year. So tax year 19 is your revenue that it's a little confusing, but tax year 19 is the revenue that was reported in fiscal year 20. Tax year 20 is your fiscal 21 year. So you ended with your property tax value was up about 18% year over year last year. And again, Brian provided the $4 trillion number. I think that's $4 billion. I wish it was trillion. That'd be a lot.
Yeah, that'd be a lot.
$4 billion number. That's estimated right now. But again, you guys have seen property tax that you've seen. Not only have you had the values raising on a property that's here, you've had increased tax rolls added to it. So you basically double the property value you were at in 2013. When it comes to how did that affect your levy percentage, you can see a couple things here. That jump in fiscal year, tax year 17, so that was when the new levy kicked in. Okay, so you had this initial jump, but as property values have come up, you can see your levy relative to property values has been falling every single year. It's down to 2.79% per thousand in fiscal year 21, which is actually on the scale here, you can see it's cheaper than it was back in 2011. Now, there's a couple things at play there, is obviously the property tax value is going up. The other thing is for fiscal year 21, you guys actually lowered your levy about $1.2 million overall. You were able to lower your bond levy was down about almost $1 million year over year. And then the emergency levy was about $260,000 in fiscal year 20, and you don't have that for fiscal year 21. So relatively speaking, although the dollar amount is higher, it's actually come back down to be almost half of what it was. Well, I guess that's not true, but 2.79 compared to the 4.57 when the initial levy was passed. Any questions on the general fund? I'm going to rifle through some of the other funds here real fast. Anything that you'd like to add to that, Brian? Cindy? All right, so child nutrition. Oops, I went ahead one, didn't I? Okay, so child nutrition. I just want to run through the child nutrition fund. You guys started the year with a fund balance of $204,000. Your revenues last year were $1,219,000. Your expenses were $1,189,000. You ended the year with a fund balance of $234,695. That was an increase of just under $30,000. Child nutrition fund has been growing a little bit each and every year, but it continues to be in good shape. It's self-sufficient, which is great. You see a lot of districts who are making a transfer from the general fund in order to support child nutrition. And that fund balance there is really available for future equipment purchases. That's really it's earmarked for. So good spot to be. Debt service fund started the year with $2,467,000. Your revenues were $2,509,000. That's really going to be your levy dollars coming in. Your expenditures last year were $2,485,000. So last year you paid off $2,160,000 of principal. That was more than originally expected. You guys had done the bond defeasance, so you guys paid off an extra $930,000 last year on your bond, which then has changed your future payment schedule. So the bonds will be retired now in August of 2025. That would be a full year in advance of where it was. So that's good use of the money. Ended the year at the $2,491,000. That was an increase. Overall, the fund increased about $23,000. The reason why you need that fund balance at the end of the year is you turn around and in August, you have to make a bond payment. So you guys paid out almost $1.5 million in August. That fund balance is what funds the August payment. Capital Projects Fund started the year with a fund balance of $821,000. Your revenues were $1,811,000. That's going to be your levy dollars of $1,167,000, and then transfers of $642,000. Your expenses were $1,187,000. Last year, the district bought 2 buses. You continued your roof repairs, parking lot resurfacing, network additions, and other various equipment. All were added to the fixed asset schedule, and you ended the year with a fund balance of $1,445,000, an increase of $623,000 last year. So, capital projects fund is in a good spot. Has continued to do, I think, what the levy was intended to, is to continue to invest in the school's capital structure. And I think it's in a good spot at the end of the year.
And just so the board knows, add that that's a snapshot in June. So some of our payments for the Lakeland Junior High roof hadn't hit at that point. So right now it's a little bit lower just because of some of the summer projects and the timing of when we do the reporting.
Overall, I think it was a good year financially. Amid all the COVID-related issues, financially speaking, the district was able to increase their fund balance in the general fund. You're at almost 2 months worth of operating expenses, which is a great spot to be in terms of making sure you have the cash flow and the resources to do the things that the board wants to do and management wants to do. So keep doing what you're doing. Everybody, it seems like you guys, the board, management is really watching the financials and doing the things that you guys want to do. So good job. Questions, comments? That was a lot of math and financial statements.
On top of the levy workshop.
Yeah, it's one of those days, huh? All right, well, I'll send you over the final financial statements tomorrow, and we'll get them. You can get them filed down with the state, and we'll be kind of put a wrap on this.
And if the board, I can get, if you want hard copies of either the graph presentation or the financial statements, I can get that to you, just let me know.
Awesome.
Thank you, Tony, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
I appreciate you coming up, giving the presentations. Thanks.
I'd also like to introduce Cindy Hackney. She's the treasurer for the district. That's her. And we couldn't do this without her. She does a lot of behind the scenes work, but she is very fiscally responsible and conservative, just like me. The first year I was in the district, we kind of made a pinky swear that we were going to really check each and everything. And I remember her telling me, yeah, there was a superintendent that signed every check. I said, hey, let's do better than that. Let's go back and let's actually have the superintendent approve every purchase order so that we know what it's going to go out for and we can question it at that stage. And even though it wasn't a big, huge chunk, because 87 or 86.1% of our budget is staffing, I think we set some parameters in place and really set some expectations. And I think that started the ball rolling down that, like, people knew we meant business and we had to send several things back. So the first year, I say, not to be discriminatory, but I think it was girl power that first year that we all worked together that first year. And then Brian, who is smarter than all of us combined, well, maybe not Tony, but he understands. Tony and me probably, but have a big picture idea of all this, and we've just gone in a really good spot. I feel really, this is one of the most proud things that I am of the district, only because the historical perspective of what Tony said, if you looked at how low it was and where we are now, it really was all of us working together in the district and people just keeping the focus. Like Cindy and I just had a conversation 2 weeks ago about something that didn't go according to protocol. So we aren't letting up. Like we really feel like this is taxpayer funds. And I think in this district, all of us treat it, and the buildings too, as if, what if it was your own funds?
Right.
And these are taxpayer funds, and we feel really, this is really important to us. And I think Tony would agree when he's talked to us before. We have little exit interviews and stuff like that. He's like, yeah, you're a district. Everyone in this district works together and takes it really seriously. So, it's just new for you guys to hear. This is your first presentation for the 3 new board members. But it is, Tony doesn't want to say it out loud, but it is his favorite district to work with because we're so good. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you guys for all you do and keeping us where we need to be. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Yeah. Thanks, Tony.
Yep, we'll talk to you soon.
Nice to meet you both.
Nice to meet you.
All right, so now we have the superintendent's report.
I was so excited about the money.
Yeah.
You guys
That's
missed the
great.
first year when I was jumping up and down, and Tony told the story and Brian was actually on the school board then, and I was so excited. I was just, when he gave the report, he was like, oh my gosh, are you like in second grade? I was like so excited. It was seriously, it was really, he's like,
work all coming together.
yeah, he was like, well, you were definitely all in. So, yeah, it was good. All right, I have a very small presentation today. It actually is only the discussion item that Trustee Thompson brought up. Because we went from, the governor went back to a modified stage 3, and we had differences in the State Board of Education's plan. Trustee Thompson had, sorry, I'm trying to, where is it?
It's second to last.
There you go, thanks. We usually have them in order and they got kind of, I think, moved up. So the only change that I am recommending, but this is actually open for board discussion because I'm not sure if Trustee Thompson had a different thing in mind. So in talking with the association today and then getting feedback from administrators, we want to make sure that the board isn't, everyone already knows this, we've already said it, the board is in charge of what our district does. The governor's is a recommendation, Panhandle Health District is a recommendation, State Board of Education, they're recommendations, they're parameters, there's kind of a big umbrella, but only the board really knows what's particular to our school district, what our patrons want, what our teachers want, what's best for our students. I know you already all know that, it's just, I think it helps to reiterate the fact that this is really the board's decision.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I really listened to the board when this first came out, is we don't want to flip-flop and we listen to you, we don't want to have flip-flopping. We think consistency is best for this district, for the students, the staff, and the parents. That being said, I just want to make sure, and my recommendation, again, is completely open to the board's desires. I want to make sure that the board knows that our levels is based on not what they said at the other, down at the state, down Boise's a lot different than we are in this district, Coeur d'Alene's a lot different than we are. When we designed this with the green, yellow, orange, and red, at that time, our red was really, and again, I did the same way that you do with the policies, we were only going to shift to red, remote learning, only in extreme conditions as a result of a local or state stay-home order. So in our mind, when we created the red, we're only going to red to fully remote if there's like a pretty extreme emergency. Like, I think it felt to me like everyone was on the same page. We don't want to go to red, like, unless it's like, you know.
A catastrophe.
Yes, that's exactly. So I'm happy to change this wording, but this is what we were thinking, maybe based on what, you know, that maybe, and I might have misinterpreted what you said, so that's why I want to make sure we have this discussion. We would like to shift to remote online learning for the majority of students with limited staggered, and this is based on that new language from the Idaho Back to School from the state board, with limited staggered in-person learning options available as deemed appropriate for individual students. And then to tell the public, we're only going to go to red level of operation, will only be utilized in extreme conditions based on a stay-home order. So
we all have to vote on that too.
Yep.
It can't be just somebody deciding. Yeah.
no, you would all, the whole board would have to come together, or remotely if that was the case, but the board would have to make a decision. But I didn't know if that was really part of what your intention was, that we would make sure and take care of kids that needed some further individualized instruction. So.
Yeah, what I took off of what I read through the State Board of Education was basically that they don't want the schools closing down again. They want children to at least have some connection, some access with in-school presence. And it wasn't like, I don't know if it was like It was a staggered approach to in-building instruction.
It really, I was really surprised, like this is, it,
Yeah, targeted short-term or extended.
motion.
Okay.
But then these are the
That was
exact,
something I
we
had.
went, these are the same, and we didn't feel, well, I'm not gonna be judgmental, but we were wondering, why are we gonna have a red level if the red level still, like, we were a little confused, it's a local decision, and again, I'm totally open to whatever you guys are thinking, but we really felt like, we really think if we were here, this would be a catastrophe. It would be something pretty severe for our board to say, we're going to complete red, like, and so we thought really the majority of the students would be at home if we had a state, like individual students that need help, like IEPs that still have to go, or at-risk learning, or something that really needed to be addressed with individual students, but we wouldn't want to have like the whole staff be there, and we wouldn't want to be like in Orange where we had smaller classes in alternating days.
Okay.
So I don't know if that, it meets your, what the board's desire was for that, and I'm certainly.
Well, for me specifically, it wasn't a board dealio. For me specifically, I was really challenged in the fact that, the State Board of Education is acknowledging that remote learning, 100% remote learning is not good for students at all. So what I interpreted their red to be leaning more towards was not going to a full remote online learning with no interaction with students.
Yep.
So that's what I was just wanting to capitalize on. And I know that in the second portion, we haven't made the corrections to it because it still says that all students.
I think Chrissy uploaded it before I was
Oh, okay.
done. So.
Yeah, the red at the bottom says all students.
Oh, this where I said will only be utilized.
Are you talking about in that paragraph, Michelle, or are you
No, I'm
talking about
talking
somewhere
about-
different in the document?
Somewhere different in the document.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't go make those changes until I knew what I hadn't talked to any of the other board members, and I only had your one little piece of feedback.
Yeah, before I ran out, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure and not go change it everywhere else until I knew what the board's intention was. And if the board wants me to change the wording to this, I will change it in the subsequent piece in the bigger part. If not, then I can take this out, put it as is. It's totally up to the board.
Well, I guess where I'm a little struggling is we are the final authority, and the extreme conditions as a result of local or community stay-home order is specifically clear. That's stating unless we get a stay-home order where no one's supposed to move about the country, then we're not going to red. But we are paralleling this with Panhandle Health District, and they're in red. And I think that kind of is challenging.
I don't think we're paralleling Panhandle Health District.
Okay.
I definitely don't believe that our district does not want to parallel theirs. In fact,
Behavior-wise correct,
Right.
but they're in the red, and we are not.
well, and neither is Coeur d'Alene, and neither is Post Falls School District
Okay.
as well. So I don't think any school districts that are in Kootenai County are paralleling Panhandle Health Districts.
Okay.
For sure, they're not.
Okay.
So I definitely,
Because I don't want that to be the governing force, and I don't want parents panicking when Panhandle Health keeps bumping us around with whatever color they choose to paint us. I have no problem if the governor shuts the state down again
that's exactly.
to say, the governor shut the state down again. So that's just where I want my lines drawn.
And I think that I'm in total agreement with you. That's why I didn't want to change too much in the wording, because I feel like I don't think this is my opinion, is I don't think our district should move into red unless the governor says there's a stay home and nobody can go.
Right.
But even in those cases, I felt like we could put those words in from state board, the limited staggered, for
Okay.
appropriate for individual students. There are maybe a few students where there would be almost like in-home instruction, or they may come to the district and they have to have some
Right.
small instruction with somebody that's been tested. There could be individual cases that we could still service some IEPs.
Right, well, because
Yes.
students with IEPs and even some 504 course, online learning is just not successful for them, and that's not a win-win for anyone.
So that's what I would recommend if the board is in approval of that for our red, and then I would change it down below to the same exact wording, that same exact wording. But I'm open to suggestions if anyone has other.
I'm not a big fan of absolutes anyway, so giving some, you know, some wiggle room.
Yeah.
So that we're not boxing ourselves in.
Yeah, I don't want to shut the schools down.
No.
So should we remove the word local?
Where?
And just leave state as a result of a local or state stay-at-home order?
And I didn't
I
know,
don't know.
if somebody could help me with the law better than I can. Is there a local way for them to do a stay-at-home, or is it only from the governor legally that we can have stay-home order? Does anyone know that?
Don't they have to create a, martial law in order to, don't they have to, go? The governor has to go into martial law in order to do that, correct? So I don't know, can a governor go into martial law?
We already are in martial law. Anyways.
Are we?
Statute 46, that's what he had.
Still? I thought that they could only do that for a certain period of time when that was over.
I think there's 3 entities. I know in the law there's 3 entities. I just don't know if they call it stay-home order.
Right.
There's 3 entities: the health and welfare, the local health district, and the governor. Those 3 can make, I don't know if it's called, I don't know if it's called stay home, but I thought the public would know what that meant since we
Right.
had that before. So
And the school district can do that, so basically
Yep.
the board, the school board, Panhandle Health, and the governor, Panhandle Health being an outreach, a child to the state Department of Health, that's where they get their authority. We all 3 sort of hold the same authority to shut the school down if there was an extreme case.
So I suppose that local could be us.
Right.
yeah,
It could be.
yeah,
That's true.
that's a great point. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay then as.
I'm fine with it. We have to remember too is that nobody had orange until we did orange. remember?
That's right.
I didn't want to say that out loud, but thank you, Trustee
Yeah.
Grissom.
It's very true. I was
Yeah.
noticing that. So they added an orange category. I'm like,
Right.
who did that first?
We're not very competitive though.
Just trailblazers, that's all.
I'm fine with the updated language. I think it just brings it, keeps it sort of cohesive with everything else that parents might read.
Yeah, I think that's great, good work.
All right, so I will leave it up there. There's an action item after we get back to that, so I will leave it up there.
Wait a second.
Okay, back to that.
Yes, please.
Okay.
On your language. Not wanting to put us in a box.
No, please. It's good.
Well, I don't know, because it does say it in the other ones. It's all about the wills. We will do this and we will do that. I always prefer the word may because it's optional. But it's will in all the other categories, so I guess will stand.
It's okay.
No, it's not okay, but I'll accept it.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that's our presentation. We go to action items. First, we have consent agenda. We have to approve the minutes of the previous meetings and the HR items. Do you want to do this individually, or would you like to do those as a group?
Well, on the board meeting minutes, there was one correction.
Okay.
For the regular meeting, Chrissy.
Okay.
Under, I like this bigger, because I gotta find it. Oh, and I don't know if this is even relevant, but under board member input for future agenda items, you said Chairman Olmsted spoke to the presentation on contact tracing, and that was me.
Oh, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'll amend that.
Okay. That was the only thing that I was like, wait a minute, I think that was me.
Any other discussion on the previous minutes?
No.
So could I, so given that there will be amendment, I would ask if we could have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meetings with the
I'm still figuring this new board book.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, wait a minute,
Trying
where
to
do we
finish
go?
doing things.
How do I get there? Yeah, no, there's,
So are we good for a motion or?
oh, yes, just for the minutes, is that?
Yeah, we'll just break
Okay,
it up so we can
perfect.
add,
okay. So I'll make a motion, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meetings with one correction to the official board meeting minutes for the October 13th, 2020 meeting.
I have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second that?
A motion and a second, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. HR items? Questions or discussion about HR items? If not, do I hear a motion to approve the HR items as presented?
I'll make a motion to present the HR items as presented.
Motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Motion in a second, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. We'll go on to the action items. G1 is to approve or deny the update to the Lake Georgia School District 272 Fall Reopen Plan. So is that the,
That's just the changes I just talked
I
about.
just talked about?
And then I'll change.
I'll make a motion to approve the update to the Lakeland Joint School District 272 Fall Reopen Plan as presented.
I'll second that.
Your motion in a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. G2, approve or deny the recommendation of the replacement instructional levy amount for March 9th, 2021 election. So, based on the information we've gotten, do we have a discussion? Are we ready to approve a specific amount of the levy target?
Well, Trustee Arians, since we just had the workshop, I would like to table this until the next meeting. And I do think it would be beneficial for Chairman Olmsted to be here when that's voted on.
And to get some of that information we asked
Yeah,
for
exactly.
would be helpful, so.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and, should we just table this?
I can use that as a motion if you
Okay.
like.
I'll
Or a
motion.
second.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Move on to G3, approve or deny the emergency provisional for employee 10.27.2020A. We have a discussion on this. Seemed pretty self-explanatory about the circumstances. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I'm just very excited that the family consumer science piece and with that beautiful kitchen down there and the students and the energy of this employee is absolutely positive, wonderful. It's gonna be great for the school, great for the students. It's really gonna be a great addition. We're really excited about it.
I have a question.
Okay.
With her credentials in achieving the Master's in Curriculum and Instruction, she'll then obtain a teaching endorsement?
Yes, and
Okay.
with CTE.
Mhm.
And then the provisional, the emergency piece is for the family consumer science, and then you have 3 years to work to do the credits for that.
Okay, okay. Gotcha.
And the good news with and talking to Colby Matilla, the director for CTE, we get that value added money now.
Okay,
So even during the 3 years, we'll get that money to buy the materials and supplies like we do at the other 2 schools, so.
Okay. Perfect.
Just really worked out really well, so I'm happy about it.
I'll make a motion to approve the emergency provisional for employee 10.27.2020A.
I'll second that.
Hear a motion in a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. G4, approve or deny the job description of assistant superintendent. So was this just,
Well, it's been brought up by trustee Grissom, and so we went through and updated it. Something we need to do with several job descriptions. And the board workshop, maybe a month ago, remember, I don't know if I've ever seen my job description. We talked about that, so we're gonna be doing, just chunking off little pieces at a time. This one, and the clerks, and then the executive assistant, we're just gonna bring them up and review and update them. We've worked on a few over the last couple of years, but some of them haven't been looked up in years and years. So we did look through this and made it a real job description of what this assistant superintendent position should be doing and would be doing in our district.
I was trying to compare the old one with the new so I could see what was actually changed because it's so lengthy.
So we started, I did talk to Chrissy and Ms. Sexton about it. We took, the old one had so many things that were outdated. They started, we let Ms. Sexton start by the first one to say this is what I did and what I should. Then Chrissy did some of that piece and then I went through and edited it. I can certainly bring the old one back and we can show you, but I think most of it would be, a lot of it would be crossed out and redone.
Right,
So
right.
these are pretty particular to the size of the district, how many assistant supers there are compared to like Coeur d'Alene where there's an elementary director and a secondary director versus some districts that are smaller where there's only one versus.
Right.
Well, what I would like to know is, in the event Lisa Sexton would want to move on,
Yes.
which I know she doesn't because she's been here forever and she plans to stay here forever.
Thank heaven.
But in some catastrophic event occurs and that occurs, is this the expectations we would have for someone walking into her position, or are some of these job responsibilities specific to Ms. Sexton because of her history?
No, you're exactly right. We want to write the job descriptions must be written as if she won the lottery and went to Tahiti tomorrow and we had to replace her. That's what we say instead of.
She's staying, even if she wins the
Well,
lottery.
we say that instead of some people that say you get hit by a school bus and you don't.
Oh, no,
we
I'm
decided
not
we
saying
don't want to
that.
say that anymore. So we decided that we're going to say the lottery thing from now on. So this is written for anyone that would replace that position. That's how we're writing the job descriptions. But that's a great question.
Okay,
Because I think we could err on the other side and that's not what we want to do.
okay. Just, I remember in the early days when I became on board, really early days, not that long ago, you had made mention that, you were like, which I know is kind of filtering down, but the public liaison piece was given to Ms. Sexton. Now we're gonna give it to the administrative assistant, but would that piece should that ever fall back on the assistant? Because pieces got moved around from my understanding, just due to a person's capabilities, which is totally acceptable. I'm just wondering if we're missing things from that because they've been put over here or over there, or
You're asking great questions. So what we really want to do is, the reason those were really shifted, part of it is strength focused,
right?
but the overall actual bigger intention is that our district is growing.
Okay,
So we couldn't have the assistant sup, whether it was Ms. Sexton or whether it was Roth. We couldn't have that person doing the CIO, the information officer, because it is too big for that position for an actual assistant superintendent in our size of district.
Okay.
So we changed the job descriptions based on our size of district with the staff and the enrollment and our size. At this point, that's why we're like, okay, no, wherever the superintendent and this executive assistant should be the person that's doing it. It goes through this person first, she clears it with the superintendent, we get other eyes on it by the assistant, but she shouldn't be in charge of it anymore.
okay.
If that answers your question.
so you're really taking a look at our district now,
Yes,
relevant,
yes,
and defining roles
yes.
based on
Yeah, not just based on her
No,
strengths,
exactly.
because in all
Based on her
actuality, you know that she has a passion for school safety and security.
Right, exactly.
But so did I, and when I was an assistant superintendent in a different district, I did all the safety and security, so it legitimately fits within the assistant superintendent's job
Okay.
description. It's not just because she has a huge passion for that.
Okay.
And the one thing is, we both do the protege team together, and so most districts would probably only have one district admin do it, but we really feel like it's important for us to do it together.
Well, and I'm also an advocate for if someone has a strength in a specific area, that's where they need to be, regardless if it's in their job description, as long as everything balances out. But you want to just add?
Yeah, please.
Probably the biggest change that we made to that job description, there were a lot of HR director type activities on the
Okay.
old job description.
Okay.
And prior to Dr. Meyer coming, that was how I spent my time as assistant superintendent. I was not at all working with teachers on teaching and learning. I wasn't working with our principals on teaching and learning. And so with this focus of teaching and learning, which is what I should be doing as the assistant superintendent, it didn't make sense that I would be responsible for interviewing guest teachers or some of the HR clerical kinds of things that were on there. So that's probably the biggest change.
Okay,
That's good to know.
yeah, thank you.
All right, do we have any more discussion about the job description as presented? If we don't, can I have a motion to either approve or deny the job description of assistant superintendent?
I'll make a motion to approve the job description of the assistant superintendent.
I have a motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. G5 is the approve or deny the job description for the clerk of the board. And I'm assuming that this is along the same lines, just clarifying and cleaning up the.
Vice Chairman Irons, this hasn't been changed since the last regular meeting we had.
I do recall at the last regular meeting, my concern is the clerk of the board's position runs specifically from January 1 through December 31. And there's nothing within the job description that identifies that.
We did talk about that.
Yeah, we clarified and checked with other districts. Where they do that is they put it into the posting so that this job is hired. They want to know the annual contract is from January to January. They don't put it in the job description, but we certainly can if you feel like it fits in there. Under terms of employment.
That's where I'm concerned, because I think we would be giving conflicting information, because if we're handing out a job description that doesn't validate the job description we're listing for the ad, I think we could have some issues with that.
And it could fit in terms of, no one else does it, but that doesn't mean we can't do it.
Right.
We could be the trendsetters, but we certainly can put that if the board would like to put it under terms of employment, that, you know, this position runs from January, a calendar year.
Right.
Your first meeting in January, your annual meeting of the board,
Right.
sure, until,
Well, it would still be back to the first meeting, right? Because they have to be there to take the notes to
Yes,
Right.
good point.
vote in the new.
And I mean, you know, you're getting prepared for the first meeting. So
Yeah.
really, I would say January 1 to December. I mean,
it'd have to be that January 1st meeting to the next January 1st meeting.
Right.
And it could go longer if that's who is chosen for the next year, right? It's
Well,
not
in
that.
all actuality, hopefully if it was a good person that's in the position and they just they have a job, I guess part of the conflict, Trustee Thompson, would be our evaluations. We do goal setting in fall IPL piece for all employees. So they set their individual professional learning plans, they set their goals. We do mid-year with them, January, February, and that would be like, it would be opposite their evaluation cycle. it would be the only, I mean, not to say we can't change it, but you see what I'm saying? And if we had improvement areas, they would have from the second half of the year to improve, and then we would let them, if they weren't gonna be renewed, all our other classified staff, we would tell in June at their final evaluation, we're not having you come back in the fall. We would just, this one employee could be on a different time schedule. I would just need to change that, meaning that the person was hired in January, the board and the superintendent could do goal setting with that person shortly.
Well,
You see
okay,
what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. I guess I'm just a little confused. Surprise. With respect to, with respect to the fact that, this is a clerk position for the benefit of the board, yet we are putting them through the same expectations as a teaching staff or a clerk, certified or non-certified?
Yeah, everybody, every single person in our district, every single person does IPLP. Bus
Okay.
drivers, a custodian.
Where, I guess I don't know where in statute that's what's supposed to happen, that they're supposed to be evaluated by the superintendent.
The clerk, you mean?
Yeah, the clerk specifically, that's the only thing that I'm talking
Okay,
about.
you got it.
I don't know where in statute it says that those are the parameters for the clerk. And so that's where I'm just kind of a little.
I think you're right. I do know they are awarded an evaluation and they are
Okay.
awarded due process as far as,
Okay.
you know, but more what I'm talking about is what our precedent is and how our practice we want it to be. We want our clerk to be able to set goals for the board. And so it would be like, we would all sit down together with the clerk and say, okay, let's do our goal setting, and then set your goals. Then we do a mid-year evaluation and then we do an end of the year. I think
Okay.
just because I want them to have the same process, because it's good, it's best practice. I think what I hear you saying, and if the rest of the board is in agreement, if it's a January, we would then, after that first meeting in January, we would be sitting down as a group with that, and they would set their goals, and we would be looking at that together with that clerk. Their mid-year would be happening in midsummer, and their end of the year evaluation would be happening at the end of the actual calendar year. Is that what you're saying?
Well, honestly, all I can compare this to is the 10 months exposure that I've had with our current clerk. I don't know that our current clerk has had an evaluation on duties as the clerk. I know that I don't recall us ever setting goals for our current clerk or the clerk coming to us saying, these are my goals. So that's where I guess I'm more confused.
Okay, this is a great question. I actually think this is a very valuable discussion.
Okay.
We've done that,
Okay.
but the board hasn't been part of it. Because
Okay.
and we have done this, and I'm really serious about it because I think we're in the education business and we want everyone to grow. So every single employee, whether it's required by statute or not, and I really, and Lisa can tell you this, I'm very serious about us. If we're in the education business, we want everyone to show growth. They set their goals and say, this is where I'm at and how do we grow each year and what can I do to help support you as your supervisor. So that's what I've done with her every year that she's been here.
Mhm.
The difference is what we're saying now, instead of it just being with me, we feel like this position, because of the size of our district, we feel like the board now should be involved in that process of hearing that setting goal part. I mean, the superintendent should still be involved because there has to be, you know, I'm your one employee, we have to be involved. But I think from this point, how we talked about before, the clerk of the board could be a half-time position that's working with the board and the superintendent, but I might almost be liaison or the person that's going to do the actual evaluation for the state and do the, you know, because you're not the evaluators, but I would still, but it's your clerk. So I would almost be like the facilitator. Does that make sense? And we're changing the way the process would happen because it would be, instead of being a combined position, it would be two separate positions so that the executive assistant position is bigger and takes on new roles, and the clerk position is full-time or half-time clerk for the board, and it may ebb and flow based on the time of year and what the board's like, oh, this is a short time for the board, we don't know what point, oh my gosh, the levy, we have these presentations, and you have night things, and we have,
resolutions and this needs to be, and there's sometimes the clerk may work more hours.
Okay.
Did I answer your question of what my thought process was on that?
What I took from what you just shared was that traditionally, I mean, what you have done with Chrissy, I think, has been twofold because she's been wearing multiple hats. But if we roll into where we have a designated specific clerk of the board, then that person's job description and everything then comes under the same management purview as everyone of the district. And that now we get to have input with respect to the goal setting, et cetera, that the clerk would have for the benefit of the board.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And the time frame would be different, and I think that's totally acceptable.
okay,
If that would be best for the board, that it was a January to January, then it's completely acceptable that the time frame for their IPLP and discussion with the board, mid-year eval and final eval would be on a different time frame. And as long as we put that in there, I think it would be totally acceptable,
okay.
if it works for the board.
I have a question. I think that that person shouldn't just answer to you. I think that person should answer to all of us. I think that this should be like a collaborative effort, and I think that person, that I can't decide if that person goes, you can't decide if that person comes or goes, Michelle can't decide. I think that somehow we need to make it so that each one of us has a say in this person's, how they're doing. Should we keep them? Do we like it?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know how we could do that, but I think that feels exciting to me because it feels like we're working together as a team, which has been what we really wanted to do, right? And that's what we've been working toward, is becoming really cohesive. And I think that that's a great start to it. So I'd like to maybe find out how maybe we could do that. What do you think about that?
I think we should, that's exactly what I was thinking when I put this proposal together, because of what you just said. You know how we're working, that you all work together, similar to help put the input for my goals? My evaluation, you're all doing, remember, individually, you're doing my evaluation, and then together, here's the total. Something, it doesn't have to be that in depth, but something along that lines, where Trustee Major, where every one of you would do a reflection on where they set their goals, and they do it with the team. And I would visualize all of us together with the clerk, and she or he are sharing their goals, setting their goals for the year, telling you what their strengths are. Then mid-year, they say, this is just like we do with the other positions. We run it the same way, and they come and talk to all of you. And I'm helping facilitate that because I legally have to do the evaluation, but you guys are giving all of that feedback. And then you each do one, and then you meet together to work with that clerk.
That poor clerk. I'm just playing
Some
around,
people
but
love that
I
kind
know,
of-
I think it'll be great. I'm just thinking, how would you like to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know what I mean? All these evaluations, but it'll be great. I mean, that person will be good, and
Yeah.
if they're doing their job, it'll be fabulous, and they'll love it. They'll be excited to get to hear all the wonderful feedback from all the fabulous things they've been doing, so.
Right. There's a lot of policy work and ed law stuff and things that actually a lot of people really like.
Chrissy, you've been doing such a good job.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know how you've been doing it all. You must have a cape in the back there, underneath there, like superhero cape or something. Don't know how you do it.
You said.
Thank you for all you do. Okay, so that being said, on that one,
Yeah, so
looks like we need to have a little work to do on that, you think?
I would like to add, and you could certainly steal, I can bring it back again, but I would add in the terms of employment, if the rest of the board would like, the terms of employment or position goes from January to January, calendar year, January to January, annually.
Yeah, because this is just the definition of the clerk of the board.
And I can just add that to the terms of employment as the last sentence.
I don't have a problem.
And that is the term, so.
Yeah.
I think it would be fair to put that on there, even though it's not standard. I still think it would be considerate and probably covering us legally, as Trustee Thompson mentioned.
So, do you want to approve the job description with the addition of the terms? Or
What are your thoughts on that, Michelle? Do you feel like it needs a little more work, or do you like how it is? Sorry, Trustee Thompson.
It's okay, Danny. No, that's fine. My whole point of concern was just the term of employment specificity given the position, because it doesn't run consecutive with the school year, just like board members don't run consecutive with the school year anymore. So, and then just the assurance that, the final say with respect to the clerk of the board falls on the shoulders of the board. That, that's, I think that needs to be crystal clear, that's all.
Trustee Grissom, or what, oh, sorry.
I think that the decision on renewing the clerk is solely on the board.
It is.
Yeah, that's something that we do. And it also does state here the evaluation by the superintendent and or school boards, but it's nice to have that piece in there already. So I think that in terms of employment, just specifying it since it is January to January, you can put it in there, since that's the term.
And you vote every January, so you guys will be seeing,
Which that in, I guess, if we're voting every January, then the person needs to be hired before the first board meeting. I mean, it kind of, I don't want to create a sticky wicket here where it's like, oh, we're making a bigger issue out of it than we need to. Because it's my understanding that typically, at least for this district, it's always been someone that's already has been here that we're like, oh, hey, you want to be clerk this year? You get to be the clerk. Because by statute, even any one of us could be the clerk of the board if we wanted to be, if we were appointed by our little collective body here. But that's my only thing, is like, if the clerk quits, then we have to advertise and we have to go through that whole process. Whereas it's my understanding of statute is right now, we could just say, we'd like to appoint you as clerk of the board, would you like to accept? And it wouldn't be someone applying. If it came from within the district office. I mean, it wouldn't be like, pulling in my neighbor saying, oh, I'm gonna bring her today and see if she wants to be clerk of the board. Am I making sense?
I was getting really scared to do that because of the Fair Labor Act, and we have a very strict protocol, just because I've lived through an audit before in a different district. So we have the Fair Labor Act, the federal Fair Labor Act that we follow, where we have to advertise, and Ms. Sexton can definitely tell you that we have really toned this up the last few years. So everyone's following the exact same protocol, and we aren't doing any good old boy stuff where, we'll just have you do it. Everyone gets to apply. You have to do interviews. They have to have 2 modes. You can't just have one interview team and interview. You have to have a second mode of input. They can have a writing sample. They can do an informal interview. They can have a scenario. Like, we always make them do 2 modes of information to make a decision, instead of just 3 people sit here, you ask 10 questions and you're done. Like, we really push them to really make sure they get the best quality person. We have a reference check thing, anonymous and So I would love if the board would be involved in that entire process with me.
Well, I would think we would have to be, because it's by statute.
Right. Well, by statute, the statute is that you approve that, but it doesn't mean you have to be involved in the hiring process. That would be a new precedent for this district, but I think it would be valuable to everything you guys said at the last 2 meetings.
Yeah.
If we all did that process together.
It would.
Yeah, I think it would be super valuable, and it would be interesting, and then I think you guys would love it, and then you can see all the different input, and then the board can make the decision on who would be the best clerk to help support us.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's very frustrating to be in the position of, hey, I'm recommending this person, but we know nothing about that person. So, I do think we need to be in on who we get to pick.
Yeah, well, especially the clerk, because that's our sole hire.
Exactly.
We determine whether or not.
Well, and the superintendent.
Yeah.
Well,
not by
Don't
statute,
forget about
though.
me.
But that's not by statute, and that's where I'm confused. Are we hiring an employee or are we hiring a clerk? The clerk belongs to the board, and only the board has jurisdiction over the clerk. So I'm confused on why we're treating the clerk as an employee.
It's really, I think Trustee Thompson was sort of alluding to this.
Yeah.
We still need to go through the fair labor practices and go through the hiring process. I'm just asking you to be on the hiring team because I'm your only employee. I'm the only person you can evaluate and hire and fire. You approve every other hire and fire, but that's through the functioning that we typically have, which the clerk of the board is in that position. But if the board says, hey, this person isn't working out, it would be on there about the mid-year, hey, we're having problems here, and it would be addressed. That would be with the board. So it's not really your employee, it's just the person that's helping support you, and that's where you do the vote in January. We're appointing this person, because like Michelle said, Trustee Thompson said, they're already on an employee. That was her point.
Right.
I do want to say that when I came, Brooke had been she was hired specifically to be the clerk of the board and the superintendent executive assistant for that position. I don't know who it was before her. Ms. Sexton probably knows. But then after she got the interview with her, the entire process and got the HR director position, then we opened it up. And Chrissy was in the community. She wasn't anyone that we had appointed or said, oh, do you want? I mean, she specifically won the job. There were several people. And the board was in on that. There were several board members in on that interview with me. So we really have gone through the protocol, and it's been a really important position. It's just that the majority of it is spending time with the superintendent and the district administrators versus, I think at our size of a district and where we are, we need to move towards these two separate positions.
So what do we want to do with this one? I think the actual job function summary is good. I think we have the terms of employment, but I'd be good with that.
Everybody else good with that?
The job description?
Yeah.
Yes.
And adding
Adding the
With
terms
the,
for January to January the terms.
with the modifications we discussed.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the job description for the clerk of the board with the modifications of the terms of employment from January 1 to January 1.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. All right, G6 is to approve or deny the job description for executive assistant to district administrators, community relations liaison. Want to address this?
This is the what we talked about last time.
Now, see, I listened to the last.
Oh,
You
sorry.
answered. That's right.
Sorry.
So I'm kind of, I kind of feel like you guys.
You're open to question. Did you get an elk bite?
I did get it.
Okay, good. Then it was actually
I got my vote. Yes, I did.
Yay.
Wasn't huge, but-
That's why the assistant superintendent's job description came into play, because when this job description came up, I was like, oh, well, that's what it says the assistant superintendent does. And then, we're in the midst of fixing things on the website right now.
Yes.
That's when we're like, oh, no, that's the wrong job description, so that's why all of these are coming out.
And one other thing I just want to make sure, I think you already know this, I think Chrissy already told that when Chad does an update to the website, that some of the old stuff from way back when gets back put in again, and then she finds out with some board policies and job descriptions that are, wait, that wasn't the right one, she has to go back.
His import from the old server kept all of those PDFs in an archive, and when he imported them, some are showing up.
Not to know, and she's also the webmaster for, does that sound this job description too?
It's not in.
I said to her this morning,
did I text you at 2 a.m.? Because I had a thing and I started to text you and I was hoping I didn't push send. And she's like, no, you didn't. Because I'm like texting her at any time and she just don't answer me back. But I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do it. I won't push send. I'll wait till the morning.
So one question I did have, and this was possibly answered last time, was, is this a full-time position at 0.75, 0.5?
Oh, yeah, and this was what we talked about last time with the way that, we talked about Chrissy's working more than I can give her for flex time.
She's like 125.
Yeah, because with all the night activities and then the levies coming up and then our wanting to make sure that we're really patient, and then with all the COVID stuff that she's been helping with and the parent stuff. And also this year is gonna be cost neutral because of, cuts that we made that we didn't refill back in again, so this will be cost neutral this year, for the district right now. But the actual job responsibilities, we just said, not to make it specific because we're not supposed to, but we cannot lose her and we don't want her to get burned out.
So this would take some off her plate too.
Well, and she's welcome to Trustee Grissom's part about the arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Is, she's welcome to apply for either position once the job descriptions get finalized. Then we can post positions and go from there.
So
Now-
what I'm hearing you say is there's plenty of work to keep this person busy.
Yes.
Okay.
More than
I just wasn't sure, because didn't say in there.
Yeah.
Whether it was.
Well, and that doesn't go in the job description, that goes in the actual posting, because we have to have the latitude to be able to, if the board decided, oh boy, we have a lot going on in our district, all of a sudden grows, that clerk position could buy they don't have a contract like a teacher, but you don't want the amount that they work in the job description, you want that in their actual, yes.
What I would like to find out is, with respect to this specific position, given that the intention is to have her, or not her, the position, the executive assistant be the district level administrator, be the executive assistant to district level administrators. And you had mentioned that, like it would be for the SWT director and
Federal programs.
yeah, and the
Assistants,
LOA, yes, okay. When we received the board pictogram, the diagram,
Organizational chart.
thank you, that's what it's called. When we received that, I noticed on there that other people have executive assistants. Well, like the tech department has an assistant, and just in simplifying it for my brain, it would be, in my opinion, like every principal has an assistant, everyone with a big hat has someone underneath them to help support them. So with all the duties and tasks that are going to be assigned to this specific position, is it our intention to never again hire an executive assistant or an assistant for the SWD department or for the federal programs administrator or for any of these other capacities that, in my opinion, should be a one-on-one ratio, because a team approach is much better than one person trying to field the ball to multiple. So
I hear what you're saying.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yep.
All my words that make no sense.
No, I totally
Okay.
get what you're saying. At our size of district, we cannot, when our goal and our mission is the student in the classroom and making sure we have the best people with the reasonable class sizes and small neighborhood schools, back to our earlier, we do not have enough funds to spend on admin assistance for everyone. So we are all willing to share, because if we have the right person, we're all working for the same cause, and looking at the assistant superintendent, federal programs, they have a CFSGA application that's due once a year. They do a lot of the financial pieces, they need some clerical help. The SWD, they do a lot of the Medicaid thing, they have an admin assistant that does all of the Medicaid. They may need a little help with the planned Part B application, and there's some clerical pieces that come in once or twice a year. Child count at Part B, Brian helps a lot with the Part B application. And then when we get to the federal programs, and then the superintendent, and then the biggest part to help with the superintendent, no matter who it is the actual community relations liaison and connecting with parents and helping with that positive piece there. So we believe that in our situation for our size of district, one person to work with all those people is perfect right now.
Okay, but respecting that due to cutbacks, I know some positions were eliminated at this level. Will we be bringing them back is, I guess, my question.
Not right now, we won't, because we feel like we can successfully and effectively operate right now. If we have this one position and the other pieces are being filled in, we're still effectively able to do it right now.
Okay.
For instance, for LOA, Rebecca has been helping Patty with LOA. She's been helping her and she's helping with my enrollment thing, used to Danielle. So we're helping, we're figuring out ways with people and helping each other to get it done. Eventually, for the student with disability director, we might, to your point, eventually need to add some clerical assistant there.
Okay.
But again, we're in the interim year, and remember, Sheila's a full-time consulting teacher helper, so she's helping with some of that. And once we get through this first year with SWD, then I think we will be able to reassess and be able to let the board know, no, we definitely need a little more time here, or this will be able to happen or not happen. But in our district leadership team, we truly believe that if we separate the clerk and this executive assistant, that we will be able to be highly effective still.
Okay.
But thanks for asking. I appreciate the fact that, no, I actually really appreciate the fact that you're thinking about the bigger picture of this.
Yeah.
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 All right, so are we ready to approve or make a motion to approve or deny the job description as presented? Anybody have any more discussion?
I don't have anything else to talk about.
There's a little number 4 under district office management that just,
It's sitting there.
it's driving me crazy.
Is it waiting for instructions?
It's not supposed to have something there, so
Okay.
I don't know why it's there, but we'll take that little 4 off.
Okay.
I was really surprised, Michelle, that you.
No, I try not to micromanage the way people prepare documents.
Just making sure you didn't miss it.
Oh, no, I didn't. I'm like, what are we missing? Oh, well, who knows?
Going for future.
I figured Chrissy was just waiting to add a couple more job description duties there. That's all. Yeah. Yeah. After approval, we'll just fill it in. Add a few more. Let's put a 5 and a 6 too.
I'll make the motion to approve the job description for the executive assistant to district administrators / community relation liaisons as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. G7, approve or deny the winter athletic schedules as presented.
So, I can speak to this one. These would typically, all of them come to you, wrestling, basketball, junior high, high school, everything comes to you all at once. And IHSAA has pushed wrestling back to January. We don't have those full schedules yet. Everything is really fluid right now, so they might come to you in a couple different chunks. So right now we have high school basketball.
Okay.
That is a full schedule. Way full. It's like, when do they have time to do school? Some of those games are 7 o'clock at night, hours away.
Well, I'm curious why there's 2 basketball schedules, because one, all I can think of is that possibly one was updated, because one has the date 9/1/2020 to 3/20/21, and then the other one has the date on it of 11/2/20 to 3/20/21. So I was curious why we're receiving 2.
Hold on one second. While I look at what you're looking
Is one girls?
Yes.
Well, one should be Timberlake High School and one should be Lakeland High School, and the girls and boys should be attached both to each document. Yeah.
They
So
both-
does boys with.
They both say boys.
Boys.
They do say,
Hold on,
I am,
and then you go down and then it
you are
says girls.
absolutely right, and
One says
girls are
girls.
attached. That was an error on my part.
Yeah.
What's
The
that?
title says boys, but the actual attachment has girls.
Well, no, one says Tim, and one says Lakeland High School, so that was
And
my
then Tim
mistake.
Cromley is the AD.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
So this should encompass both high schools and boys and girls.
Yeah, just to let you know that the IHSAA is meeting tomorrow to make decisions about whether they're even delaying. I mean, this may change again. They may be delaying the entire winter season based on yesterday's announcement.
Oh,
With volleyball, do you know we did make it to state for the first time in 36 years, Lisa?
wow,
We made it to state volleyball.
wow.
So,
How
and
exciting.
And Kelsey Badger, our interim SWD director, is the coach. And I think it's 36, don't quote me in the minutes, but I think it's like 36 years that they haven't made it to state volleyball, but they came out after the governor's thing that only, we can only have 50 people in there, so it's gonna be the fans or, so that would be, but that's exciting.
That's awesome, yeah.
And this does seem like a lot, but when you break it down like the boys varsity.
Right, yeah, I was just looking at it thinking,
But then you got
Yeah.
you got all the different.
But they have to go on the bus, to her point,
Right.
they have to sit there with, and hopefully they'll have their Chromebook and they'll be working on their.
yeah, because I'm thinking, that's a long way. but
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion if nobody else has any questions.
Well, why is it, just because of the weird things that I focus on, and I apologize for that. But we have the Timberlake boys, their home and away are equal, and they have more games than Lakeland. Lakeland has, it appears that Timberlake has 20 games, the Lakeland teams have less than 20 games, but they have more away games than they do home
They're in
games.
different leagues,
Yeah.
so one's a 3A and it's all done by the league.
No, I understand that, but is there a reason why we can't have the same equal home games as away games?
Probably because there are more smaller districts
No,
than
no, no.
larger.
We have more away games. than
It changes every year.
Yeah.
So the league, we're in the IEL, the
Right.
Inland Empire League, and they make their things all together. The ADs and the coaches get together, and then the next year we'll have more home than away.
Okay,
So it's like on a 2-year cycle.
okay,
And it's all done on league, and they come in and then so it changes.
okay.
But that's why. It's the same with football, they have more, 1 year's 4 away, 5 at home, and then it changes.
Everyone takes their turn at
Yes.
having more away games.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a lot more complicated than it seems like it should be.
It's actually something that you'll just say, thank you ADs for doing this, we're so happy that you do this and we don't have to.
Yeah, really.
Seriously.
All right, so can I have a motion to approve or deny the winter athletic schedule as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the winter athletic schedules as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing none, the motion passes. All right,
We have
Gee.
cheering for us.
gee, I've been hearing you all the time.
All night long, it's like, what is going on in the dark?
Football.
Oh, okay, okay.
Is that what it is?
All right, so, approve or deny the, update to policy 1140 vacancies.
So Vice Chairman Irons, since you weren't here the last meeting, we had these 4 policies come before, and a couple of them were just statute changes and minor word changes. And then lesson plan was just a really minor word change, and then the electronic signatures, our current policy just has regular signatures and no electronic, and we
Yeah.
widespread.
Yeah, I saw that.
Across the district,
There's a
use
lot
electronic.
added in there.
Mhm.
Because it's becoming more and more commonplace. Actually, I think we're all policies. This one was very dear to my heart. We trust these. So do we have any discussion on the changes?
That's all we talked about a little bit last time, yeah. Good job, just thank you for all of you who
Oh,
do.
yeah, thank you for the policy.
Yes, yes, yes. All these policy changes are fabulous.
Thank you, Christine.
All right, well, can I have a motion then to approve or deny the update to policy 1140?
I'll make a motion to approve the updated policy 1140 vacancies as presented.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. The next policy update is to policy 1260. Let's see here. No, 1205, school board powers and duties.
I'll make a motion to approve the update to policy 1205, school board powers and duties.
I'll second that.
Here, motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Now we go to update policy 1260, authorization signatures to be named electronic. This is the new stuff. Looks like a lot of new stuff.
I'll make a motion to approve the update to policy 1260, authorization of signatures to be named authorization of signatures and electronic signatures, excuse me.
I'll second that.
Your motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. The last action item is to approve and evaluate policy 2110, lesson plan.
I'll make a motion to approve the update to policy 2110, lesson plan.
I'll second that.
I hear a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, so we're on to discussion items only. We've got a first read of update to policy 6400, principles. I think quite a bit has been added to this to make it more specific.
Well, I suppose we can chit chat about that if you'd like. Initially, when we were reviewing 6320 and 6400, ISBA's 6320 almost mirrored our 6400, and our 6400 almost mirrored their 6320. What we've done is basically allowed 6320 to become the evaluation for administrative staff, for specific district level certified administrative staff, and 6400 to be specifically for principals, with both policies having, although 6320s doesn't seem to be here. Let me see if it's on the, weren't we doing a procedure? Or it's not on the,
Which is right below it.
is it?
Yeah.
What am I not seeing?
It's both,
No, 6400 has a key, but 6320 doesn't have a key.
well, it just named it procedure, so does it not have a P afterwards?
She's saying that where it
Oh,
says,
does.
it says P, it just needs a P after the 63.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right now, we're just.
Fireman. So what we did was to clean it up within our policy so that we would hopefully never have the conflict of someone not being able to follow what their procedures are to find any sort of remedy for anything that they needed to remedy.
And there was some confusion on what classification.
Correct. And
Policy.
fortunately, Ms. Cunningham and Ms. Sexton were in on this as well. Initially, there were Mr. Derrick and Ms. Pasley were also in on this because we initially looked at it and it was overwhelming. And so then we were like, we'll put that away. And so we finally had time to be able to bring it back. And Ms. Sexton pointed out that, you know, she's got similar criteria that principals have. That's kind of where the confusion was like, wait a minute. Because when she was talking about the students, the way I finally wrapped my head around it is her students aren't little pupils at desks. Her students are the staff below her, so to speak. So that made complete sense to me. And so in a sense, they do parallel each other, but they're specifically targeted for the classification that we call it, or If you're a principal, you go specifically here. If you're a district level certified employee, you go here, regardless of what additional hat you wear with your title. So that will help everybody in the future with, that may have a concern with how they're being treated or whatever. These are the steps you follow. So we really try to clean it up for that.
We definitely change the policy to make it more specific to each. And instead of this.
Right. They're running in their own lanes.
That's good.
It is.
Done.
So does anybody have any questions on this? Sorry, Ron, I'll take it over, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, you guys are part of the operation.
Well, it was hugely beneficial to have Brooke and Lisa. I mean, hugely, because they could answer questions and help me understand the errors of my ways.
So it's all learning.
It is. There's a huge.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do with the policies is we're trying, Christine and I are talking and trying to find people that are applicable instead of just me always talking about it. And from my perspective, is to get people so they can get to know other people in the district as well.
Yes, for
Yeah.
administrators, principals, sit through the rubble and. Miles. So, are there any other questions or discussions about really either of the two policies, 6400 or the 6320, because they kind of as far as.
Right.
Yeah, me too.
Like I said, I had the opportunity to read them all pretty good. It really defined and separated which.
Yeah. We need it.
Yes.
All right, well, let's go on to the fall convention. 2020 ISDA fall convention.
It's coming up. This is all virtual, is that correct?
It's all virtual, and the two items on this that we brought to you are the early bird workshops, and those are the only one, the four of them, I believe, that won't be recorded and available later.
Oh, okay.
So we'd like to know, our practice before has been to kind of divide and conquer. If there are trustees who would like to attend certain early bird workshops, if you could let me know. And I'll mark you off for those ones so we know who's attending what.
Do we want them, if you could look right now and see so we can get that discount and sign up. Early bird workshops, just go in the rooms, they're 100% reimbursable by the money. Yeah. So if you're interested in an early bird workshop, these are reimbursable.
I'd like to think so. It's navigating COVID-19.
He's getting it'll probably be.
That would be a good one.
Well, I'm sure it's in the actual conferences, we'll have something, but it's not an early bird. But she was writing it down.
That hiring 101 looks like a cool one for what we've got coming up, especially, I don't know if that's exactly what it's referring, but. I know two ladies who charter governments they've been winging that one here. You guys have been doing a great job on that.
Anybody want to pick something?
Well, I think it's more than anything, just taking a close look at knowing that these, we need to kind of know. Because I really haven't focused.
If someone would be willing to go to the, if someone would, I will sit in hiring 101. So if another board member wants to do that, otherwise I will take notes in that one if that time doesn't work for people. But and Brooke is going to be going to training on Title IX. Certainly, if you're interested in that, I really feel with what we just discussed before, if at least one board member could attend that,
Yeah.
It's Monday, November 9th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Which
And
would
those
be
are not
8 to 10.
recorded, she said.
8 to 10, yeah, these are all listed.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for not saying that. So 8 to 10. If somebody could do that clerk as a member of the governance team, or I could do that if someone would rather do the hiring, if one other person is available, we could at least, I think those two are most applicable to our board right now.
Right. I could do I'll do the clerk,
Okay, thank you.
considering I had the most questions.
Okay, that would be really good if you could do that. And then, that would be great. And then I will do the hiring. If anyone else is available, we can have 2 people.
It's the 5th, oh, here it is, right there.
Monday, November 9th, from 8 to 10, because it's,
Well, I could do that one, sit in that one with you, unless you wanted me to do a different one.
no, that would be, unless you're interested in something, but I think that was really applicable, like you said, to what we.
Yeah,
So if you and I did that one,
yeah.
that would be great.
Okay, so are we signing up for these?
No,
or is Tracy doing it?
No, Chrissy's doing it for you. I just needed to know what you were interested in. Normally we have a package, we'll sit around a table and talk and do it, but with COVID, it's all different now. We can, so this is the only one we need to do that.
I had to set in a conference. It was just mind-numbing for the whole weekend. It's like, ugh. So I'm not looking forward to this. I'm just saying. I love going to conferences because there is a connection that occurs on the computer. It's like, just because then I start to multitask and nothing gets.
And then you wonder
Why am I here?
No, but then you wonder why students have a problem. It's the same thing for our students.
it
at home
is.
That are, yes,
That's
exactly what you said. It's
Really distracting.
Yeah, it's very.
and you don't have that connect personal, you just hit the nail right on the head.
So I love going to conferences. I'll do the Title IX.
Oh, good.
Oh, you will have fun with that.
Yes, I will.
I really, being pinned down.
We're totally covered.
I think,
We're
I
totally,
can hit the ones that are recorded, it's just,
we're
I
totally.
can't hit the Monday to 9, but we're like,
We're good because now we've got the 2 that we really wanted to get covered. We have 2 board members, and then Chrissy and I are both going to attend also, so we have 2 eyes on that.
And the charter governance wouldn't apply to us.
No. And
Yes.
so that's wonderful.
So we're all covered, we got, so somebody's in all of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, the last one is the business session, which is November 12th on that Thursday, so that I think is 9 to 11 a.m. I did send you a calendar invite on that. I heard back from Trustee Grissom. I will be there. I'll have the boardroom set up and I'll post a possible forum.
Can you just say for out loud so people who didn't know what the decision was that was made about that?
Oh,
Any-
right,
can you
yes.
say sure that's-
So there were 3 choices the ISBA gave us. We could designate a single person to vote for the resolutions and the proposed bylaws, or we could all meet in person. And I can't remember off the top of my head what that 3rd choice was.
Designate one.
That was the person.
Oh, you could give a certain amount of votes to each
Oh,
board
right.
member.
Everybody could have and choose to attend on their own virtually. So we can meet in the boardroom and you can deliberate together, and I will take the training on the vote system so that we can, based on what you guys think, also make your votes for you.
Okay, so is it just one person voting, but based on our consensus?
Yes.
Okay,
For anyone who's here.
okay.
So we're showing up at 10 a.m. on Thursday, November 12th.
It would be 9 a.m.
Believe in Mountain Time, it's 9 a.m.
If you're interested in it. Like some people really like this and other people, this is not, they're not interested at all. So in my experience with it, Trustee Major over the years is everyone's sitting around, and then some board members are up and off doing it. Other people are really interested in it and listening. Other people go and other boards go up. Members of other boards at other districts go up and give like the reason why we put this in here, and this is why you should vote for it. And it's kind of like they give a little.
It's like a mock sort of thing.
And it's real. It's real. And then every district, they just changed it. Every district has a certain number of votes for your district based on your size. And then, so if you're interested in all these resolutions, all the resolutions where then you come and Chrissy will be here and whoever's here talks about it, and you guys decide whether you want to vote for it or not vote for it. And there's been times when the board said, no, I don't want it, yes, I do want it, okay, let's put our votes in half, we'll do half yeses and half noes.
Oh,
And then there's other times, most of the times we've gone, and it's been, the entire board has said, yeah, let's do this one, everyone's for it, so we get all the votes. I don't get to vote, but and my daughter's actually getting married in this case, so I don't know, but, the board then would put all the votes towards something.
I see. What
And
kind
it's
of votes
actually-
do we have?
They just changed the plan, so they'll tell you.
How many what?
Votes.
Oh, we have. Just because I was thinking if only 2 board members ended up showing up, and there was a not a meeting of the minds.
Yeah, we have like 70 votes or something like that.
Ooh, that's a lot.
It's proportional to how big a district is
Okay,
compared to other districts, so.
okay,
There's been times where often, when I participated in the past, we typically would vote as a block.
okay.
But there was times where we split it, let's say 35-35. Or one time I said, I'm gonna give them 5 just because no one else in the whole room will.
Yeah.
But generally, on things that are close, we try to see what was in the best interest of the district and ISBA and what the agenda was.
Okay. So do you understand what all this is, Debbie?
No.
Okay, so ISBA, well, all the districts have the opportunity to submit a resolution. A resolution is what we're telling ISBA to take to the legislators to try and pass law, change statute, implement, right, whatever. That's why in my brain, it's really important because if there's something we really believe in, then we should be voting and give them the authority to go to the legislature and say,
Oh, that's
please
cool.
do this.
Yeah.
Right, so it is really more of our governance and more of your role as an elected official or an appointed official. This is really what you do.
To have your voice, this is what you have.
Right,
Okay,
exactly.
that's
So-
cool.
Well, and this is our area's voice
Right.
to the state.
Right,
Perfect.
absolutely.
That's really cool.
Influence. Right.
Yeah.
See,
It is interesting. This is one.
Yeah. And if it hadn't been for COVID, we could have done our own resolution to make them allow us to have impact fees.
Yes. And to Trustee Grissom's point, every year that I've gone to this in the resolutions, every year has been on the facilities, remember the last state that doesn't give money to facilities and you have to have a super majority to pass it? Every year that resolution, they tell ISB take it, and so far hasn't changed anything, but they are. Every year, it's to her point, it is brought to the legislature.
That's cool.
From,
Broken record, squeaky wheel.
they have a great, the ISBA has a lot of pull as sitting at the table of the legislature. They really do.
That's neat. Okay, yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, I think people.
And that's what Chairman Olmsted decided, was whoever was here was the ones that, that's what she was, the option she was.
All right, well, do we have any other discussion on the fall convention? If not, we can move on to the board member input agenda items. Specifically, I'm not gonna argue. Plus, I think we've got pretty fluid line of communication, something arises off.
May
Communicate with it.
may I just give a heads up to the board that we did talk about, and it was brought up in one of our alone sessions together, about finishing the middle level alignment and my goals for the year. I do want to remind the board that trust major you weren't on yet, but with portables, you have to have a decision made by a certain time. So not saying that we're going to go down that road, but November 10th, which is our next board meeting, we'll come back to this levy discussion again and have information for you prior to there. That will take further discussion. But also We do plan on having a workshop from 5 to 6, unless the board wants it as part of the agenda, to finish the middle level alignment and all schools workshop and tell you what that would entail to move that into moving all 6th grade into middle level for the fall next year. So it's scheduled right now into a 5 to 6 p.m. workshop, but that's what we have tentatively scheduled, just for you to know. Then the next. That's what's scheduled, if that's okay. And that's November 10th. We also just looking ahead on December 8th, the next scheduled board regular school board meeting. This every year, and I think you've seen a few of them. The two are the least new two. They've seen
Ramona and Michelle.
right.
I didn't want to go ahead. Trustee Chris.
Dang. Have seen some presentations by principals where they have the goals. How did we make our goals last year? What do I have for this year? And they have it. So we also, this year will be the first year that the directors are doing presentations to the board on their plan of action. So I've been trying, the COVID got in the way last year. I really want to continue with that. So I'm not trying to overwhelm you, but I think it will help your learners, your top 5, and you will appreciate. So Chad Carson is the tech ITV. He's going to do a presentation again. It's scheduled for about 10, 12 minutes and then time for questions. So they're not long, but also our Strength Finders workshop, we're doing that on December 10th, and I'm having a holiday meal. We're having a holiday meal together.
Didn't Chad just do a presentation? Are you sure?
Yeah.
He did.
He did one on the protege team.
Yeah.
He was just one of the presented, and he was showing you how he was an actual protege in this participating in our program.
I mean, not that I would want to hear from him again. I just thought if we're making him double do and double do.
The Strength Finder. So Chrissy will send out a meeting request. I want to get on the calendars for you for the next 2 meetings. So 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock is a workshop next on November 10th, and then the regular, and then the next will be 4 to 5:30 is our Strength Finder workshop. We'll be having a holiday meal together, team building. Kevin's going to do the meal for us and show you kind of double dipping. And he's going to show you the Discovery Kitchen thing for a holiday meal, and we're going to have the Strength Finders workshop that I'm going to do.
Okay, and that's on what date?
That's on our December 8th board meeting.
Oh, okay.
So that will be, I'll have Chrissy will send out meeting requests so it goes into your calendars. But I just want to give you foreshadowing of what's coming up.
Thank you.
I don't even know where my calendar is. I put it on home on my calendar. It's so inept. It's cool.
I can do a Google workshop.
Oh, you know.
I have Google Gal.
Did I? Oh, you did. Look, it's there.
All right.
Colby, it's coming.
I'm gonna go ahead and gavel out the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, Rob. Yeah,
Go get some sleep.
you're a pro at